Thank you for your talk. I had a question about protein in dinosaur bones. I don't know whether you've seen that type of thing coming out in the literature these days, but I've been reading about it, and it seems to imply that the timeline is much shorter than the millions of years that they talk about often with dinosaurs. And I'm just wondering if you read about it, and if so, kind of what your thoughts were.
I'm not sure. I mean, I read a lot about dinosaur proteins, but I haven't.
Okay. I've been reading that there are protein samples in dinosaur bones. And if it's anything other than a sampling error, which it appears that it is not, protein doesn't last for millions of years. It only lasts for tens of thousands of years. So it would have significant impact on the assumption.
So what would be the theological implications that you would see?
I think it would steer you towards, like you said, a shorter time frame, which would say that God had to have more involvement in the design.
Well, this would have to leave out a lot of the other ways in which science have measured the depth of time, including radiometric dating of all different sorts. I don't think that there are many scientists who would contest the contemporary view of cosmologists that our universe is 13.8 billion years old. And for all we know, I mean, there's a lot of speculation going on, there's no evidence for it, that this is only one of many universes as well. There's a whole multiverse theory that's becoming very popular today as well. And I don't have any theological objections to that either. A God who could bring about a world with the kind of diversity that we have in this one surely has the extravagance to make plurality of universes if necessary. So the depth of time is something, if we diminish time, my thinking is, and I can't prove this, but it seems to me that we need images of immensity to do justice to the infinite God that we talk about. And one of the great gifts of science has been first the tremendous expansion of space, and also the corresponding expansion of space. There has been a parallel increase in the depth and immensity of time as well. And one of the things that Teilhard says, and it's something that I completely agree with, is that we have to avoid ever settling for an idea of God who is smaller than the universe that science is giving us. So any attempt to diminish the timeline, I think, is not only scientifically wrong, but I think it's also theologically problematic as well. That we should rejoice in the almost infinite immensity that science has given us as a sacrament of the divine infinity that we didn't have for many centuries. So science has been a great gift of theology in that sense.
Thank you very much for opening us up. We are. My question has to do with a university in this kind of conversation. It seems to me that a significant part of what you were talking about, including your latest book, The Cosmic Story, includes also these metaphors of drama and promise. So it seems to me that the humanities seem to be very, very important to be able to be in this kind of conversation with scientists and vice versa. To be able to be at ease with drama, promise, story, along with all of these other, quote, scientific facts. Maybe any other comments? I mean, you're at a university.
Thank you. I completely agree with you. That's very helpful. And I was talking with some people that were Father Tim and others today about a new development that's originating in history departments in different parts of the world. It's almost an international movement called Big History. And the idea of big history is that history, the discipline of history in our universities, should not stop with the beginning of human history and tell just the human story, but should tell the whole story of everything that's happened in the past. And that would take us all the way back to the Big Bang. And it would allow us and encourage us to, if we're going to teach history in our universities, to tell the whole story. And so there are a few places Dominican College in California, a college that I spoke at in the Philippines, Catholic College, and several other places. I think there's one in Florida here who have tried to, or thinking about redoing their whole curriculum in terms of the big cosmic story, so that all the disciplines would be seen as giving us insight into this large cosmic adventure that scientists have just very recently dug up. And most universities, like you're suggesting, have ignored it, and instead of taking advantage of it. It could widen not only our sense of the divine, if you're talking about a religious college, but also our sense of humanity. Study of evolution can tell us a whole lot about why we are the kind of beings that we are. There should be no conflict between that and theological vision. In fact, just the opposite. But we're very far from having implemented that kind of curriculum change. But I think it's a very exciting idea.
Thank you.
There's a question on this side.
Thank you. Oh, fine. I'm going to read paragraph 400 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Okay. Don't read the whole thing.
It's very short. The harmony in which they found themselves, they being monogenetic parents,
First parents.
thanks to original justice, is now destroyed.
Is now what?
Destroyed.
Destroy home.
The control of the soul's spiritual faculties over the body is shattered. The union of man and woman becomes subject to tensions, their relations henceforth marked by lust and domination. Harmony with creation is broken. Visible creation has become alien and hostile to man. Because of man, creation is now subject to its bondage to decay. Finally, the consequence explicitly foretold for this disobedience will come true. Man will return to the ground, for out of it he was taken. Death makes its entrance into human history.
So what's your...
Okay, my question is, I don't believe in original sin, original justice, the state of original harmony between the species or between the sexes, or the historicity of Adam and Eve. Death and decay were part of the Creator's plan A, not plan B. Am I hopelessly lost? Condemned?
No, I just simply want to say a few words. I could spend a whole lecture on this thing. You have to remember that the Catholic Catechism was written by theologians who still had not really taken into their thought world this idea of a universe that's still coming into being. This was Teilhart's complaint about his fellow Catholics. This is back early in the 20th century. Teilhart looked at what was coming out of the Vatican at the time, and he felt that he had to remain a Catholic because the very principles that he would use to criticize Catholicism came from his Catholic training. So it's not just one monolithic, obsolete worldview that he identified with Catholicism. He also saw in his Catholic background, his Catholic tradition, a longing for the truth, the idea that truth cannot contradict truth and so forth. And he kept that principle his whole life. So something is scientifically true, it simply cannot contradict what is religiously true. But both communities, both the scientific and the religious communities, are part of an unfinished universe, and they have to keep on exploring ways in which they can reconcile science and faith. And that's what I've been doing my whole life, trying to do that. And I'm quite comfortable with being a Catholic because I can see in my tradition a kind of adventurousness, along with a great deal of imperfection, and even like all religions, malfeasance, as we know today more than ever before, how religions can go astray, and how religious people can err and do tremendous evil. But somehow, I don't want anyone to condone that, but I do have to realistically acknowledge that every religion is part, including Catholicism, of an unfinished universe. And if you look at Catholicism itself, it has changed its thinking over the course of time. We live in an epoch now where we're just becoming aware of evolution and cosmology. And most Catholic seminaries don't touch upon these ideas at all. Priests are coming out of the seminaries without any understanding of all this. How many times in my life in science and religion have I talked to scientists who stopped going to church because they don't hear anything like this from the suburban pulpit? And it's a scandal. It's nothing less than a scandal that this sort of thing is going on. And the Catholic Catechism still reflects. I mean, this is the new Catholic Catechism, which implies that there's an old catechism. This is new. So, but at least there's the idea that things can change. So maybe we need a new catechism and an unfinished universe. But I'm sympathetic with your questions, but I can't spend too much time on them now.
Hello, quick question. You spoke about the idea of God taking the biblical approach of God as opening up the future in terms of evolution. Have you attempted to reconcile this with eschatology or the study of the end times from the Catholic perspective, and also looking at where does evolution hit a point where, because God has already made himself manifest in the world and continues to reveal himself through revelation, that humanity just grows closer to God through evolution?
Well, that's a very good question, but there are lots of questions implied there. I did my doctoral dissertation on the question of how to interpret eschatology, the statements about the future in the Bible. And the whole of 20th century theology has been a big controversy about how to make sense of the fact, for example, that Jesus himself was born within an apocalyptic eschatological environment and experienced in his own religious life the intensity of expectation that was in the air at the time. And I've tried as far as possible to be faithful to the mind of Jesus. I mean, that's what we have to keep coming back to. And to the fact that when he first came into his public ministry, his first words were not how to behave ourselves. His first words were about something really big is coming. Wake up to it. And I think religion always at its best is a process of awakening, or should be a process of awakening. But as time goes on, the question of awakening, without necessarily losing its intensity, can change in terms of the horizon through which we are awakening. And what I find in science is not something that in any way is contradictory to that urgent sense of expectation of the kingdom of God in Jesus. What I've done in my theology of science and my theology of nature is to align the Christian expectation of the coming of the kingdom with the universe that we're now becoming aware of, which is an awakening universe. This drama, I didn't use the word awakening too much, but in my book, The New Cosmic Story, that's the main theme. The cosmos is a story of an awakening. Matter awakens to life. Life has awakened or is awakening to mind. Awakening is a drama because there's always a danger of going back to sleep. And the story of humanity is one of not smooth, linear awakening, but often returning to sleep, to darkness, so rather than to the light. So that's what makes it a drama, rather than just some automatic process. And so I want to show that somehow the universe that science has clearly shown to be a kind of awakening is completely consistent with the kind of expectation that we find in biblical faith as well. So that's my eschatology. But that doesn't mean that I can paint any clear pictures of where it's going. But that's part of the drama. That's part of the risk. That's faith.
Thank you.
One more?
Hi. So I know that in no way there's a real answer to this, but I was wondering about your opinion. So earlier you proposed a way of thinking of God as not an artist or designer, but rather a way to the future, with no dead ends, as you put it. But what is your perspective on the idea that eternal life might be a dead end in itself, considering that depending where you go, you would be limited to the perfection of God's will and consequently losing your earthly life and identity of freedom? If life is about finding meaning alongside all the obstacles or excessive sufferings, how would that individuality be maintained, considering that we would essentially be one or the same in heaven? The easy or most simple answer would be, my ways are not your ways, but what is your opinion on that question?
Well, it's not so much an opinion as a hope. I think anytime we talk about what our destiny is, it's not a matter of knowledge, but one of hope. And what I find in identifying with the biblical tradition is don't give up on the possibility that there are surprises up ahead that we don't really know how to picture right now. But just the life of openness to surprise, I think, is the authentic existence. The biblical notion of authentic existence is not having necessarily certitudes about things that you go around beating people over the head with, but about maintaining a sense of expectation, of bridal expectation, of waiting, of patience. And I think that, as the great theologian Paul Tillich says, that we are stronger, and actually we're happier when we wait than when we possess. Think about it. There's a kind of vitality that goes along with waiting that's not there when you think you've got it all wrapped up. It's a kind of deadening. That's a kind of dead end in itself. So there's a kind of infinity to our longing. And I think that's a good starting point for understanding human nature. As St. Augustine said centuries ago, we are capax infinity. Our hearts are restless until they rest with the infinite itself. And I just want to take that Augustinian idea, which I think is sound, and apply it to the cosmos. The cosmos is restless until it rests in the divine. So my answer to your question is not really an answer, excuse me for not having, but I no longer can think of my personal destiny apart from cosmic destiny, the fulfillment of the whole universe. And there are lots of reasons to say that. Everything in our existence has been prepared for by this fermentation, as Taggart calls it, or this cosmic process. Each one of us is a universe bursting out in a kind of awakening that has been festering for 13 billion years, as it were. So all that's part of our story. Tell your own story, whether now or eschatologically. You have to tell the whole cosmic story. This is something we learned from Darwin and Einstein. We didn't have this before. So we're away with the kind of individualism that thinks that our destiny is one of purely private beatific vision, if you will. It's one with creation. And that's the New Testament idea. That resurrection is primarily a communal idea. Christ is the firstborn of the dead. And so resurrection is primarily a communal sort of experience. And now now that we know so much more about life and evolution, cosmology than we did before, we can bring the whole notion of resurrection into a kind of cosmic perspective as well. And there's a lot of ways in which we can think about it. I think each one of us has the job of thinking these things.